To breaking news, World War III update. You can't make this up. U.S. Stratcom and the Air Force have just released a promo video for World War III. You see, he's turning the key. He's launching the Minuteman ballistic missiles. He is reassuring us all that the U.S. nuclear deterrent remains a formidable force in the world. Don't worry. Nothing bad is ever going to happen. We got stealth bombers who can barely take care of the Houthis, much less the Russians and the Chinese. And we got some submarines, and we got bunkers for ourselves as well. Guys, this is absolutely insane, the pace at which things are progressing. In the last 2 weeks, we've went from mostly amicable relations with the Chinese to on the brink of full-blown Cold War. Get a load of everything that has happened in just the last week, okay? The White House has effectively declared war on China. The White House plans to negotiate with more than 70 countries to persuade them to ban China from transporting goods through their territories. These are effectively tantamount to sanctions. And sanctions are, by many accounts, a declaration of war. There has been a collapse in the negotiations surrounding TikTok. There has been a ban on Hollywood movies by the Chinese. There are talks of delisting companies off the New York Stock Exchange. There are cargo ships being backed up because they are no longer going to the United States. People think this is a joke. I see people online cackling about how the war with China or a trade embargo on China is going to be fun. And we're going to create all kinds of memes about the Chinese and Xi Jinping reading The Art of the Deal, and they don't really comprehend that the shelves are about to be empty, okay? And that is not being alarmist at all. We're talking about massive military exercises surrounding Taiwan, the likes of which we've never seen before. We're talking about 150% tariffs still in place on most goods from China and the United States, including pharmaceuticals, at the expense of Americans who rely on pharmaceuticals. Okay, that's how serious this is. We're talking about the Chinese no longer importing Boeing planes, no longer exporting rare earth metals to the United States, who relies on those for their military armament programs. We're talking about the suspension of postal shipments from Hong Kong. No more shipments by the Federal Postal Service to the United States via Hong Kong. We're talking about the halting of natural gas imports into China, the halting of beef imports from the United States. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars basically brought to a standstill. And now, what we thought was some sort of reprieve from the semiconductor tariffs over the weekend, Howard Lutnick came out today and basically said that actually this is only temporary and they're working on creating a framework which is going to be permanent for the imposition of tariffs on the semiconductor sector. So, on that news, and the government now banning NVIDIA from selling the most advanced H20 AI chips to China indefinitely, this caused NVIDIA's stock to plummet in overnight trading. And now they're even saying that there could be inspections on Chinese tech operations can now take place anytime, anywhere. My friends, we are in uncharted territory. And like I said, it's only been a couple weeks since this whole thing started. That's the pace of things. And I haven't even talked about the speculation that China is trading in U.S. treasuries for other currencies and gold. What is the price of gold telling us? Well, look at that. What a surprise. Almost at that golden number, 3,300. I'm thinking something esoteric is going to happen around 3,300. Remember when I was talking about how when it comes to 33, they love that number 33, especially considering as the Federal Reserve is located at 33 Liberty Street, okay, where they hold all the gold, most of the gold. One of the biggest gold depositories in the world is located at 33 Liberty Street in the heart of New York City. My friends, things are getting crazy. Even the Russians are broadcasting on their Doomsday radio station. Get a load of this, okay? I'm just going to play you a little bit of it. But Russia's mysterious Judgment Day radio station, UVB-76, transmitted 4 military instructions in a day, which is incredibly rare. Now remember, Stratcom, also known as the Air Force, okay, they make up the majority of what Stratcom is, or, you know, the weapon systems that are deployed. They're the ones who are launching the nukes, okay? And why would you release a video like this right now, especially considering that the U.S. nuclear arsenal is incredibly dated, especially compared to the advancements that the Russians have made in hypersonics, in their nuclear-powered avant-garde nuclear missiles. Yes, you heard correct. Their massive nuclear torpedoes that they can launch from these submarines that are something like 100 megatons potentially. The Sarmat 2 missile system. I mean, just it goes on and on with respect to what the Russians are working on in terms of EMP weapons, space-based weaponry. The list goes on. So why would you feel the need to make a promo trailer like this at this point in time, especially clearly advertising the nuclear component of this? Well, I think it's because they're getting ready for the shit to hit the fan. Here's what the Russians are broadcasting right now. Now, this is an incredibly rare occurrence for us to have 4 messages in a day. This is extremely unusual, and it's assumed that these communications are in some way related to Russia's nuclear triad. Now, it may well be the case that Russia is running some sort of nuclear exercises, but I find the timing of all of this rather suspect, considering we are told that we are on the brink of some sort of peaceful breakthrough on the Ukrainian front, which, as you probably can expect, I think is a complete load of crap. This Witkoff guy is running around shaking hands, engaging in political niceties, but nothing is fundamentally changing whatsoever. Every single theater of conflict, from Ukraine to China to Iran, of all places, is escalating. Germany is getting ready to send Taurus missiles to Ukraine, according to MERS, and the Crimean Bridge is now being referenced by German media in talking about the use of Taurus missiles. Now remember, the Russian air defense is not tuned to defend against Taurus missiles, which is not to say they can't. It's just to say that it's a weapon that they've never went up against before. So if anything was going to have a hope in hell of taking out this bridge, it would be that. Okay, now there's all kinds of rumors right now that the Russians are about to do a major offensive, and it's about to start in a couple weeks' time. There's a lot of credible information to support that. There's rumors that Zelensky is going to be overthrown. You got Zelensky rallying the troops from the comfort of the United Kingdom there as the ambassador to Ukraine, saying that you should be prepared to die for your country, meaning that shit's about to go down on that front. There is no peace coming. In fact, that whole fake, phony ceasefire that both sides violated dozens of times, the ceasefire on infrastructure, of course, is about to expire. So, I mean, the shit's going to hit the fan, okay? I keep telling you guys. I mean, I've told you for the longest time, and I got to get a screenshot when it hits 3,300. Man, oh boy, people are still buying Bitcoin. People are still holding on, white-knuckling it. Guys, please, please, do me a favor and just go. If there's something that you think you're going to want that's made in China, you might want to get it now. Because when this shit starts, it's going to start everywhere at the same time. The only way that the United States can get the upper hand on China is if they go to the supply chain, is if they cut off their lifeline. is if they are able to somehow stop the flow of energy into China. And this declaration from the White House that they are going to expect countries to suspend trade with China for sanctions relief is absolutely insane. I mean, the pace with which we've accelerated this conflict is staggering. It's truly staggering that we've gotten this far so quickly. Looks like we're not going to see 3,300 at least for a few minutes here, so let's move on. Now, this is, I believe, who's this guy? He's an ambassador of some sort in China, and the aggressive rhetoric coming from the Chinese is something that we're just not accustomed to, okay? People think that this is normal speak because most people are just, they don't pay attention to these things. People are too busy working 3 jobs. I get it. But get a load of this, okay? This guy would only be permitted to say this if this was approved by the man himself, Xi Jinping. He's basically saying that Americans are peasants, and he's declared that Trump's tariffs will backfire. Let those peasants in the United States wail in front of the 5,000 years of Chinese civilization. He says the United States imposed heavy tariffs on Hong Kong. This is extremely arrogant and shameless. He goes on, this makes it clear to the world the U.S. cannot tolerate Hong Kong's prosperity and stability, of course, Hong Kong being a recently annexed province within China. And it is the biggest sinister manipulator undermining human rights, freedom, the rule of law, prosperity, and stability in Hong Kong. You see how things come full circle? You remember the Hong Kong protests that took place right before the outbreak of the Wuhan flu, before everybody went into lockdown? It all makes sense. I got to keep going back to this because I don't want to miss that screenshot. Okay. And it is the biggest sinister manipulator undermining human rights, freedom, the rule of law, prosperity, and blah, blah, blah. Let those American peasants wail before the 5,000-year-old civilization of the Chinese nation. They're rallying in a patriotic way that I haven't seen. History and reality tells us that the Chinese people will never accept bullying, and all Chinese people, including Hong Kong compatriots, cannot be intimidated or overwhelmed. Okay, and then we can't forget about Zhirinovsky. We'll come back to him because that guy was prophetic, to say the least. We also have another ambassador to China, and he actually speaks English, and this is on the BBC, so I can play this one for you.
To be very brief, J.D. Vance and I went to the same law school, your law school. I was 20 years ahead of him, and I'm ashamed for the ignorance and the bigotry he demonstrated. Because he called China the peasants finance them, the peasants sold them goods. Let me just make one single point. The middle class in China is larger than the total population in the United States. The urban population in China is about 3 times as big as the total population of the United States. So, my advice to my alumni at Yale Law School, J.D. Vance, is wake up, or you go back to school to study more diligently to avoid making yourself a fool in front of the world.
This is incredibly belligerent language, guys, and it's not common for the Chinese to engage in that manner of speaking. So this tells you how quickly things are actually heating up, okay? This is a video of a guy controlling a drone on the front line, allegedly, from a skyscraper in Moscow. Now, if you've ever seen the Robin Williams movie, Toys, probably one of the most criminally underrated films that predicted this exact thing. The only exception is, in that movie, the drones were being flown by children unknowingly that they were actually engaged in real combat on the battlefield. They thought they were playing a video game. The problem with this setup is that this effectively means anywhere is a target. And because of the ability for these systems to communicate in real time with incredibly low latency and, how would you say, no lag. This means that you can fight wars from anywhere in the world. So anywhere is a legitimate target. This guy is a legitimate target for Ukraine. And that opens up a whole other dimension of this conflict then, if these guys are going to be operating in this capacity remotely. Now, I don't know how common this is. Of course, there's going to have to be a guy on the ground that goes and puts the drone up in the air. But it's interesting to know that this is actually happening, okay? Incredible, incredible stuff. These are very incredible times that we're living in. The Zionists should be awaiting the lashes of God's punishment. Okay, so if you guys think that the phony negotiations going on with Iran are substantive, then I would encourage you to think again. This same guy, Abbas Aragachi, okay, this is the guy who notoriously was seen in a restaurant in Syria, I shit you not, celebrating the fact that Syria would not fall and that everything was fine the day before Assad fled the country. The day before Assad fled the country. Eating in a restaurant, chilling, taking pictures with people, telling people that everything was going to be fine. Now he's engaged with negotiations with Steve Witkoff, whose backstory and biography deserves an expose unto itself. But nonetheless, this is not a guy who is a diplomat, okay? This is a businessman. And as such, he's in the business of making deals, but perhaps not thinking about these things strategically. Witkoff is playing the role of good cop, period, point blank. And I'm in slight disagreement with the previous guest that we had on the channel, David Pine, that this situation is going to be resolved. I personally don't think it's going to be resolved. I think that they're stringing the Iranians along because primarily Iran is not going to agree to the terms that have been laid out. Here are the terms. Iran will not curtail their nuclear program, but they will allow limited International Atomic Agency access. But they won't allow inspections of the missile program, something that Witkoff recently clarified that they would want. They would want Iran to scale back their weapons platform that would allow them to deliver a nuclear weapon that is arguably as important as the nuclear weapon itself. And here's a quote from Khamenei, okay? This is today, and this is but one of a half a dozen tweets that are very similar. The Zionists should be awaiting the lashes of God's punishment. Could you imagine if Trump or Putin issued a tweet that the Russians should be awaiting the lashes of God's punishment while engaged in negotiations, or vice versa? So anybody trying to convince you that this situation is going to be resolved in a few meetings in Oman or wherever between some real estate tycoon, guys, they're pulling your leg. That's bullshit. It's not going to happen. They've already rejected the proposition that they send their enriched uranium to Russia or a third-party country. That is something that is being proposed. The Iranians said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to limit our uranium enrichment to 3.67%. You can't even defeat Yemen with massive ordnance penetrators. What do we have to fear? That's what they're thinking. Now, I go back and me and David Pine were talking about this, and he brought it up actually, that there was no reason for the United States and Donald Trump to put himself in a position where these forces that are currently in the Middle East could be used as a tripwire. If Trump genuinely didn't want a war in the Middle East, he would have not attacked Yemen. Why? Because Yemen stopped its attacks on Israel while the Gaza ceasefire was in place. It was only after the suspension of the ceasefire that Yemen started ramping up its attacks against Israel. That said, none of those missiles ever make it through. They almost always get shot down. So why would you then send 2 aircraft carriers, a third of your stealth bomber platforms, and countless other cargo ships, tankers, refueling tankers to this region, were it not a setup for a bigger conflict and only to initiate the first leg of what is going to be a much larger campaign in the Middle East? Trump is not dumb. He would know if there were actually oppositional neoconservative forces in the ranks who are trying to get him into a situation where he would have no choice but to come to Israel's aid, because of course one of these warships eventually is going to get shot down or shot at, and there's going to be casualties. And of course when that happens, we're talking about a USS Liberty, what is the other one? Lusitania, sinking of the Lusitania situation, where I'm not saying it's going to be a false flag attack because that might be a bridge too far, but maybe there's going to be an element of you're just putting all of these soldiers in harm's way and using them as a convenient tripwire. So then you can say that Iran rejected a fair proposition and they are now the aggressor, and we now have to engage in some form of military recourse. And that's what's going to happen. Okay, so the deal that they're proposing is effectively a non-starter for Iran. Now, both sides are going to probably stall because both sides benefit from stalling. But that doesn't mean anything. That just means that they buy a little bit more time to move more military equipment into place. And Iran knows this. And in fact, there are elements within the Iranian government that are saying that if we don't attack Diego Garcia now and wipe out all of America's bases in the region now, then we're going to be in an untenable situation. And sure, they would probably get nuked into the Stone Age, but not before releasing many of their own nukes on Israel and wiping Israel off the map. Now, all of this could potentially suck in the rest of the world. This is a black hole, and as soon as you cross that nuclear Rubicon in the Middle East, that's like the event horizon for World War III. Okay, we're not going to be able to resist that gravitational pull. We're all going to be sucked into it because, of course, the global energy markets rely on that. If you suspend global trade and the global supply chain, then you're at war with China, full stop. And this is why the markets are crashing. This is why right now we're seeing record outflows from foreign investors, from the US equity markets. This is why gold is 39.3. Oh, look at it, almost made it 32.99.80. I tell you, that 3,300 number, shit's going to go down after 3,300. Because look, when you're an elite, okay? When you're an elite, you get bored, man. Imagine ruling over the human race. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but just think about this rationally. Imagine you could have anything you wanted, any artifact made by man, the highest cutting edge technology, the best yacht, the best spaceship, the best whatever you want, you would get bored. Okay, you'd probably get bored somewhere in the Victorian era or something, okay? And everything from this point on, you're just like a kid with a magnifying glass roasting ants on a sidewalk on a summer's day. That's what it is. They are amusing themselves at this point in time. I mean, look at the symbolism of this whole Katy Perry thing and the going to space and all that stuff. That's great. I'm not throwing shade on the ladies for going to space and taking a few selfies like people are. But clearly that's the Baphomet. I mean, come on. That's the Baphomet. I don't even believe in this stuff. But I'm sure there's some other weird stuff going on in there as well. But, okay, so what I'm trying to say is that you get so bored when you rule over people with such ease that you gotta raise the stakes to keep it exciting, right? You gotta have a Hunger Games. You seen that movie Cabin in the Woods or Squid Game? They're telling you what's happening. It's entertainment for the elites. Our suffering is entertainment. And that's not a conspiracy theory. If you just play the tape through to its logical conclusion, knowing the psychology of dopamine and how you need more and more and how there's diminishing returns on anything in life. But if you're an elite, you probably go down the path of sadomasochism and all kinds of weird stuff that these people are engaging in, all right? And you do that a generation after generation after generation, you're probably gonna do something when it hits 3,300 because why not? There's nothing else to do. You got all the technology, you got all the best stuff. All you have to do is basically sit there and twiddle your thumbs, contemplate the meaning of the universe, hoping some smart guy figures it out, right? Because this is what I think about, all right? Now, the Russians allegedly are wanting to park nuclear bombers in Indonesia. Now, Indonesia is denying this, but this was actually a story on Russia Today. So this is interesting. Russia positioning themselves within this theater, of course, would put them in striking distance of Australia and the Philippines and all of the United States bases throughout the island chains in that region, almost as if as a show of support for the Chinese at this point in time, because the Americans actually think that they're going to be able to pull away the Russians from the Chinese when they're building golden domes and wanting to annex Greenland so that they can prepare for nuclear war with the Russians. It's all a farce. My God, sometimes I wish I knew nothing. Netherlands is mobilizing for war. The Dutch military chief, General Onno Eichelheim, ordered 70, that was not a Netherlands accent, I don't think, but I tried, ordered 76,000 troops and civilians to prepare for immediate operational deployment, warning that mobilization could be needed faster than expected. Let me read that again, okay? People think this is a joke. I know people are burnt out of the prepping stuff. I get it, but this is the most critical time to be paying attention. 76,000 troops and civilians need to prepare for immediate operational deployment, warning that mobilization could be needed faster than expected. This unprecedented move raises alarm about preparations for possible conflict with Russia as European tensions skyrocket. Now, the Russians are getting ready to do a major operation in Ukraine. And this is when you could potentially see UK and France troops, as well as UK and France planes, making sure that they only advance so far. And that is when we're going to see the first shots fired across the bow between these two entities. One positive thing happening right now, for the sake of our gun rights, is that the Conservatives seem to be pulling ahead again in the polls. Now, I think I predicted this for a long time. I said that if they get rid of Trudeau, it's going to be terrible for the Conservatives because people are fickle, they have a very short-term memory, and the whole Trump derangement thing really boosted the Liberals in the polls. Thankfully, a lot of people are starting to wake up, and I hope the Conservatives are going to win. Not because I'm a lifelong Conservative, but in Canada, if there's any way we need to veer right now, it's right. It's like you're driving on a road. Sometimes the road turns right, sometimes it turns left. There's a time to go left and a time to go right. In Canada right now, we got to go right because we are way out in left field. Literally. So vote for Pierre. Okay. Family home sales in the United States are approaching all-time highs, not seen since 2008. Probably nothing, right? Trump's talking about, we've seen the biggest gains in the stock market in history. Okay, but you do realize something, right? When the market, and this is just simple math, loss and subsequent gain necessary for full recovery of value. If the market goes down 10% and up 10%, it's not where it was originally, because it's 10% of the new amount, which is lower. So let's say the market is at 100, just to clarify this in simple terms. If the market goes down 10%, it goes to 90. Well, if it goes up 10%, it goes to 99. Okay, and you can play that tape through several times over, and you can see after a certain amount of those cycles, that's called a bear market. And so this puts it in perspective. Were the market to go down, let's just say theoretically 50%, in order to recoup the gains, and this is why bear traps are so common in bear markets, because it seems like we're getting ahead. It seems, because you're looking in percentages, but that's not a way to conceptualize it. You actually need to have the market rise 100%. It only makes sense if the market starts off at 100 and it goes down to 50. Well, how are you going to get back to 100? It's got to double, right? So, what this is saying is that it can take a long time, and for a generation who's been so conditioned to believe that things just go up and up and up and up and up, it's going to be a hard pill to swallow, if there is even any pills left. What else do I have to talk about? Zelenovsky. Yeah, I forgot to say that the other part of the Chinese thing is South America. Trump essentially gave South America an ultimatum. And of course, that all starts off with the Panama Canal, which they've now committed to militarizing and making sure that Chinese ships can't pass through or have to pay a pretty heavy toll. So this is called an embargo. This is an act of war. And right when things get way too expensive, they're going to give you everything with an asterisk. Everything. What do I mean by that? They're going to give you the Matrix. This is augmented reality that I've never seen before. I follow tech quite closely, and I never realized that augmented reality was getting this good. Take a look at this. So this is a video of an actual scene in someone's living room. And of course, they have superimposed a graphic. Obviously, they have some sort of headset on or using their phone. And typically these augmented reality things are fairly clunky. The thing is always seems like it's floating and it's never right on there. But check this out, okay? This is incredible. Look at this. Look at that. It just conforms to all of the contours. Like the physics of it is almost perfect. And this is what I mean when it costs too much. I took my kids to the movies, and after subjecting myself to Minecraft, I have even less hope for humanity, okay? But that's another story. Just seeing that crowd go wild over the chicken jockey thing was, my God, it was like, God, this is so cringy. Anyways, guys, what they're going to do is when things get so prohibitively expensive, they're going to try to give you some sort of virtual composite of said thing to make up for it. And that's what we're going to see. And this is Ready Player One. If you've never seen that movie, it's kind of like a comedy / kids movie, but it's the future. Okay, that is the future. The dystopian future that is most likely at this point. And they're going to use this augmented reality physics. Like, take a look at this. Look at this. And it's going to take a while to get there. It's not going to be overnight, but it's going to get there. And they're going to integrate robotics, LLMs, real-time, artificially intelligent, created virtual worlds. And that's how they're going to keep you subdued and mollified in the new world order. This is what AI video creation is doing. Recall, we are only 2 years out from Will Smith Spaghetti. Remember that one? Where it was like a bad Salvador Dali painting dream, where he's like, spaghetti was attacking him and all that. And this is the latest and greatest. Take a look at this. This is from a prompt. Now, I know ChatGPT 4 came out, what was it, about 2 years ago, and they promised, I think it was called Sora, and they promised to have, real life looking video, and it kind of was a flop. This is not. Take a look at this. This is all AI generated stuff, including the sound. Okay, that's important.
For thousands of years, we roamed the land, hunting, surviving. And when the day was done, we sat by the fire and spoke. We passed down memory. We found our purpose telling stories. But when we learned to work the land began to work us.
Everybody's like, oh yeah, I can still tell it's AI. Dude, it's been 2 years. Play the tape through 2 more years. People have no idea what's coming with AI agents and chat bots that you can actually engage in deep conversations with. Most people don't even know it exists. That's the crazy thing. Like if you've ever used ChatGPT voice, you have no idea how fast it's advancing. It's like talking to a real person. And that's only the public face version. So I just want to conclude with this because this is how they're going to try to subdue people when life becomes unlivable. The prices of things, as I was saying, I got a little derailed in my thought process. I took the kids to a movie this weekend and I could not believe how much it cost. I mean, okay, now, granted, we went in the seats that have the vibrating thing and all that. Okay, fine. We don't go out and do a lot of stuff. $300! $100 for the movies. $120 for the tickets. And then, of course, they want to play video games because we got to wait for half an hour. These video games, I used to go to the arcade with $5 and I could stay in that place for probably a couple hours. $70 for about 10 minutes. And then the concession was another $70 for 4 popcorns and 4 drinks. $300 fucking dollars. And people think it's a game. Oh man, the preppers were right. Yeah, we were. Unfortunately, when the preppers are right in the penultimate sense of the word, there ain't going to be nobody to share it with because there ain't going to be no grid to communicate on. Let's just end with a Baphomet. Oh, it's right there. Hey, it's really right there. Wow. Yep. That's it. I don't know what else to say, man. I mean, it's here. It's happening. Zhirinovsky. Remember what the late, great Zhirinovsky said. He said, Syria will fall. This is a Russian pundit, scholar, renowned for his accurate predictions, predicting the war to the day, years in advance. This was in 2019. He said in 2024, there will be no elections in Ukraine. He was right about that. And that these were the last elections. In 2024, there will be no elections because there will be no country with the name Ukraine. Well, okay. Technically not true, but de facto true. A conflict in the Middle East will break out, which it did in 2023. This is in 2019, okay? That everyone will simply forgot about Ukraine. We're talking about something like World War III. Iran is not Vietnam, the DPRK, or Kosovo. The most terrible events will happen here. And it's all playing out. And he also said in a separate, more long-winded quote, that first Syria will collapse, and then they're going for Iran. So just trust me, bro. Just keep on prepping, bros. It's all happening, and you have time, but you don't have that much time. And you know, last year I was talking about how I felt that there was some force moving me out of the city onto an off-grid, into that environment, in the rural environment, onto an acreage, a homestead. And a lot of people were thinking, oh, well, nothing's come to pass yet, but I've yet to build it out. I've yet to build the ark because it takes so long to do. It takes so long to build something like that out. I just finished building 80% of the raised garden beds in the greenhouse, and now I got to get the soil in there. And, you know, the orchard is hopefully up and running this year. We planted everything last year, but, you know, the chickens are coming soon, and I get it now. You know, I do get it now, and I'm not a religious man. I know some of you, you keep sending me postcards and messages and, you know, t-shirts, and I got so many, you know, Jesus loves me mugs around the office here. It's incredible. But I don't throw them away, just so you know. I keep them. I mean, I'm not, you know, I'm an agnostic, but, you know, hey, I'm not going to keep a cup because the way things are going in China, who knows how long we're going to get that stuff. But it all makes sense. It's like I've been given just enough time to get prepared, you know. And all of this time that we're being spared, we're on borrowed time, is just extra. It's just extra time to prep. And I'm not ready yet. And I feel sorry for people who are not ready for what's coming and what could potentially happen very, very quickly. There's a reason why Stratcom is showing us this, okay? And it's ominous and it's not good. We are on an insidious approach towards something which is, it's going to be shocking to a lot of people who, but I don't even know anymore, because it's almost as if we're so detached from reality now. I think people will probably just brush it off and be like, you mean I can't buy Bitcoin anymore? You know, when is the crypto market's going to open up again? That's probably the first thing they're going to say when the lights go out. And then they're just going to slowly deteriorate. That said, looks like we might not see 3,300 tonight, or we may. But be careful, because when this number gets to 3,300, if I was a bored elite, was just sitting there twiddling my thumbs, burning insects with a magnifying glass, and numerology came around and the stars aligned, I would probably do something, because who's going to care? You can put it right in front of people and they won't say shit. I got to go.